to navigating the file system. And I believe what I'm writing here may not be clear, but what I mean is that it's going to be high-level talk about the concepts, not a description of how the file system itself works, not a description of the more physical aspects of what a file system is. So how do you use it? How do you change a directory? How do you list your files? And the idea here is that you should learn how to navigate the Linux file system or the file system in general, which may be very different to what you are used to, because in general, daily life, you will just, if you're using Windows, maybe you just click something, or you search for a file to find it and run it. So it's somewhat different to how to use the Linux file system or a file system like this in general. And we'll talk some more about files and directories and about paths and the options and flags. Options and flags are interchangeable words that are used. Well, you call options flags sometimes, I guess, because they are sitting in as a little flag after it. And arguments to the shell commands. And we'll learn about tab completion, which is a way of getting things written faster. So the Linux file system directory structure, it starts with the top root directory, which is shown as a slash. Below this are several other standard directories. Of main interest are user/user bin, home, user lib, and user lib64. Common directory also find is user local bin. This picture, it shows the subdirectories under the root, the slash, with the command tree. It doesn't work at all HPC centers, though it does work on Tetralit. There is a page for tree under the extra session, and it explains how to install it if it's missing. Some directories have a symbolic link to a different name. That's often used to make it quicker to write. It can also be for compatibility reasons, because you have some software that have hard-coded paths. We will talk about symbolic links more. The path or path name is a representation of the location of a file or folder, directory on a computer file system. So let's see. The slash here is the root of the directory structure on a Linux file system. User bin contains most of system-specific binaries, and you are especially on your home system. User local bin are non-system binaries. It could be locally compiled or maintained packages. /home is where the home directory of the users of the system are located. And the path to it can vary. Some of the HPC centers have just /home/your username. Others have /home/first letter of your username/username. So it varies a little how they have arranged it. If it's your home system, then it's almost always just /home/the username. User lib has kernel modules and shared library images that you need to boot the system and to run commands in the root file system. And user lib64 is the same as user lib, but it's for 64-bit libraries. You will often also find a directory called /opt, which contains some user-installed binaries or executables, programs you have installed. You can also illustrate the file system like this. So here's the root. Below it are a number of subdirectories. It could be home, where the user directories are under, opt or temp for temporary files, or this user, and then bin and lib. I believe I have tree installed, and this will then give me not from when you just run tree on a directory, it will show you how it looks below that directory. And since I was not standing in the root, it didn't show me how it looked from the root, but only from that directory. You can do the same at tetralit, and in this case, it gives you the same output because it's showing how it looks from that directory. If I went to the root of the tetralit or any other HPC system and then ran tree if it's installed, or if I just ran some output for all the subdirectories, it would be huge. Also because there would be a lot of user directories. So there would be many, many things. So when you see the character slash, it may mean the root directory if it's at the front of a file or directory name. Or it may mean a separator if it's inside a path. So if you wanted to address this slash opt directory, then you could call it just, you could just say cd slash opt, and you would go to it because this is always addressing the directory that is below the root. Whereas if it's inside of the directory, say if it's home and like this here, then it's a divider, a separator inside a path. And you can also do that in subdirectories below where you are. So you can see this my test dir here. You could see here before that there were some subdirectories under it, so I could talk about this test year 1 under it by saying my test year and then this one here. Then it's a separator. And you can see if you're talking about a directory that is immediately under the one you are in, then you don't put the slash here in front of it. That would actually be wrong because then you would be saying, if you said this here, oops, sorry, then you say my test dir is below the root directory, and that's not true. So if you actually wanted to give the full path, you would instead have to give the actual full path, and let's see what that is. So that is the full path. So you would say this whole line here. And that is a very long command. So that is why you would probably use a, instead of a absolute or full path, you would use a relative path when you are talking about something that is just immediately below the directory you are in. So here you can see that it's the same. Anyway, if you are on a local cluster on an HPC center and anywhere where you are not root, you will as default end up in your home directory when you're logged in. And you can use cd space and 2 dots a couple times to go to the root of the system and do tree if you want to. Or you can do tree in your home directory. And I will try to do that, but you can see here I'm stepping backwards inside of it. And now I am in the root shown here. And they have some directories below that. You can recognize bin and home and lib64 and lib. And there's also an opt directory and a temp, things like this. And if I ran tree here, I would probably regret it. As you can see, it's huge. Let's stub out of this. And now if I say cd, I will go back to my home directory. And then I can go immediately back into the directory where I have my exercises, like this. And this is how it looks untethered. It is similar to what I showed you before. So the root, the home, and then directories of users below it. This is me. So the path to your home directory will vary, but you can always go to it. If you just type cd and nothing else, you always go to your home directory. And as I mentioned, the path varies. Some just have your home directories below /home. Some places it's /home / first letter of the username. If it's on a laptop, if it's stuff that you have installed yourself, your own Linux, then it might just look like this here. And I haven't updated this because this is actually my old work laptop, the work desktop that I changed fairly recently, and it's now named the same as my home work desktop. So, well, you can always use the command pwd to see the actual path here. /home /username /directory /subdirectory. The same on this one here, /home /username /directory /subdirectory. There is also an environment variable that you can use as shortcut for the path to $home is the environment variable. And let's try say ls $home. And that gives you the content of your home directory. It looks like this for me untethered it. We'll talk more about environment variables later, but you can go to the home directory with cd or with cd $home. It must be capital letters in home. pwd print working directory is lowercase. Try type it and see what happens. And this is just showing what I just did. Go ahead and try do that in some of the directories you're in, just to see how it works. So listing files and directories. You have seen me use the command ls, and the ls command is used to list files. If you just give the command ls with no flags, it will list all files in the current directory, except for files that are hidden. And hidden files are usually configuration files. But you can see here I say ls, and then it shows the files that are there. and I can do the same here. And this on my home computer, I have not created the directory and the file, my file, the text, so it looks different. You can use it to list files or directories in any directory, but default it's the one you are currently standing in. So you could see here I said ls$home. That meant that I listed what was in the home directory. I can also say ls my test dir, then it lists the files under that directory. So some examples are ls and then slash, then it will list the contents of the root directory, like that. ls and two dots. Two dots is addressing the parent directory of a current directory, like this. And ls and a tilde is just like $home. It is your home directory, it will list. ls and a star. A star is a wildcard, we will talk more of it, where it stands for everything. So it lists the content of the current directory and all the subdirectories, like this. And the subdirectory, yes. So commonly used flags. -d and */ if you only want to list directories. -a, very common. It lists your files and directories, including the hidden ones. I don't think there are any here, except, of course, these two, which dot is the current directory. This is the parent directory. But it's often, I could see if I can do that in my home directory. Then you can see there's a lot more files. And they are indeed mainly configuration files that are often created when you run some program. For instance, .matlab will be created and contain configuration and other things for MATLAB, logs and things when you run that. So -l lists the content in long format. It lists permissions, owners, size in bytes, modification date, time, and the file or directory name. And if you put an H on it also, it adds an extra column that represents the size in human readable, or it changes the size to human readable format. I should also say that if you use arrow up, it will let you see the previous commands you have given. So you can use arrow up or down to scroll through your previous commands. -t lists the content sorted by last modification date in descending order. You can put an R on it to use ascending order instead. Capital R recursively content in all subdirectories. -s with their sizes, but that is actually default at many systems, so you don't need to add that. Capital S sort files in by size in descending order. You can always use R for ascending order. And let's try and see what happens here. So here they are sorted by oldest to newest. And here it is newest to oldest. You can always use --help to get help. for which commands exist, which flags exist, which options exist, or man ls. So let's try, say, ls minus minus help. Then it gives you some output where it tells you more about commands, flags to the options to ls. So you'll get a long list. And there's something called man for manual, and you can use that on most commands. So man ls will give you a manual where you can go through it and find different options and other help. You'll get out of it by pressing Q. And this is general. You can usually use that to get help or a manual for some Linux command. So yeah, I can go through this here as an example. So let me go into my test with a CD. I will do ls, and here it shows the content. If I do ls minus a, it also shows these path or whatever to this current directory, or to the current directory and to the parent directory. If I say ls minus l, as I showed, it gives you permissions, user, um, the size, and the date of modification, and then the name. And you can, of course, combine these commands to get all of it shown. And H for human readable, that it's for the size. And this is basically what we already did. If I say ls star, then it's the content of the directories below my test dir. Let's see, this is what was there. And these here are permissions, and there are 3 groups, one for user, one for the group, and one for the world. And the prefix D means it's a directory. A line means there's no permission set for that. And there are 3 groups, owner, group, and all. R is for read, W is for write, and X is for execute. I will talk a little bit more about it under scripting. So a little bit about how to change it. So you have also seen the command cd is used to change directory. As mentioned, cd goes directly to your home directory. Cd well, I can go into the directory I just created, and you can put several directories full path here, or a relative path, in this case relative path, and cd dots goes up to the parent directory of where you are. Cd and a line goes to the previous directory you were in. So you could do cd, you're now in your home directory, like that, and cd a line, you're now back in the directory of your exercises. And this is very useful because that's a fast way of moving between 2 different directories. This here is the structure of the exercises directly that you get after just extracting the tarball. And I have some dots or whatever going up here, and that means that there are other directories above it. And of course there are, because this is $home, it's my home directory, so above it are the root, for instance. And here is my home directory and the exercises and whatever other directories you have. Under the exercises, there are my test year, there are patterns, scripts, and then there are these two directories here, and the other could be other directories below them, and there are definitely files below them. So remember, $home is an environment variable. It gives a shortcut to your home directory. And this is not correct because it was correct for the one in the spring that I forgot to change. I thought I had changed it all. To change to the directory exercises when you are in your home directory, you do cd intro minus Linux / exercises. And then you can go to test year 1. So let's go to home directory again. cd intro minus Linux, cd exercises. Go in your exercises directory. Test year 1. Because I forgot to go into my test year. So you're in that. You can do cd to go to your home directory, and then you can go directly to a subdirectory with intro Linux exercises, my test year 1, for instance. So you can give a long path, or you can just go step by step, first one directory, next and next into them as you want to. And you can use full paths, known as absolute paths, or you can use relative paths. The paths I've been using here are relative. They are relative to the directory you are in. If you are going to go to use an absolute path, you can do that as well. And that is then /home/ your username, and then the directory you are going to, like that. And what did I write wrong? I forgot exercises. You can see if you're giving a full path, it must be every directory from the root and until the directory you want to go to. Whereas if it's a relative path, you're just talking about the directory below you, and you only give the path relative to where you're standing. You can also use ... to talk about the directory above you, and then you could go to one of the other directories you can see here. You could go to patterns from my test directory with 2 dots to go up here, and then patterns to go down here. And that is fully functional to do that. Wildcards, I mentioned those. They are useful stand-ins for one or more character or number, and you use it for finding patterns or for removing or listing all files of a certain type. Wildcards are also called glob or globbing patterns, and there is some more text here if you feel like reading that. So common wildcards. There is a question mark. It represents a single character. There is a star. It represents a string of characters. Or a hard parenthesis. They represent a range. And then curly brackets. The terms are separated by commas, and each term must be a wildcard or exact name. And then you can have hard parentheses and a quotation mark. And it matches any character that is not listed between the two hard parentheses. That is a logical not. And 2 stars specifies an escape character when using a subsequent special character. I think there is something wrong here. Anyway, I will check it. You may need quotation marks around some wildcards as well. And let's go ahead and try out some of these commands. And they are in the patterns directory, which is where I am right now. You can see there is a number of files here. And if you put this question mark, it matches one character, so it matches any file that is named my file something.txt, but only with one character. So I will try with ls and see what happens if I say my file question mark dot text. It lists everything that matches that. So you'll get all these here. If you instead have a star between here, R star D, it matches red, rad, Ronald, anything starting with R and ending with D, including RD. If you then make a list of, for instance, in this case, letters in hard parentheses, then it will only match one of those 3 here. So it will match rack or Rick or rock. And if you put a range, it will match any 3-letter word that starts with A and ends with A and has character between D and J in between. And let's try to do that. ls A hard parenthesis D minus J A. And I managed to put a curly bracket instead. See, here it matches Ada, Afa, Aya. And you could also do it, of course, with these 0 to 9 letters. And that means that, okay, Zoom said it was ready. I hope it doesn't mean that no one has been hearing me. Anyway, this matches a range of number from 0 to 9. And you can also make a more complicated line like this. So this allows you to copy any files ending in .dat, C, and PDF into your home directory. There must not be spaces between the commas for this to work. And you can test it by creating a matched file in the patterns directory with touch file.c and running the command and see that it only copies that one. I think that we already have one. I already created one, yes. So let me try that. And it tells me there are no files with that and none with PDF. So let's see what happened. But it did copy file.c. These were files that were already there, that out text. So And there's also a way of removing a lot of files, and this here will remove uh, any file named this file and something except the one that has an 8. And it's safe to do because you can always recreate it by untarring the tarball again. So I'm going to try and remove this here. So not 8, and then a star. And you can see all the files named this file except the one this file 8 were removed. Okay, so your home directory generally located in /home/username or /home/first letter of your username/username. Can also be addressed with $home and with tilde, and pwd is useful determining your path and current location. If you change the directory, you'll use cd and the directory. Or you can just give the command cd to take you to a home directory. ls lists files and directories. Wildcards are meta characters for one or more character or number and are useful when you are finding patterns or removing, copying, listing all files of a certain type.